You think you're alone out there? Dead wrong. Here are 3 true stories that'll make you never want to step foot in the woods again. Let's get into it. I've been an outdoorsman my whole life. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, so I'm used to rain, mud, and weird noises. I don't scare easy. But what happened last November? Straight up nightmare fuel. I haven't gone solo camping since. I was boondocking, dispersed camping way out in the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest. No cell service, 0 amenities, just me, my truck, and the trees. Total isolation. I found a sick spot near a ridge, set up camp, and got a fire going. Around 10 p.m., the wind died down. It got dead silent. You know that heavy silence where you can hear your own blood pumping? That's when I heard it. From down in the ravine, maybe 200 yards out, I heard a voice. Hello? I froze. It wasn't a scream, it was super casual, like someone answering a phone. The vibes were instantly off. I didn't answer. You don't engage with creepers in the woods. That's rule number 1. I put my hand on my bear spray and waited. 5 minutes later, closer this time, maybe 100 yards. Hello? Dude, the hair on my arm stood up. It was the exact same pitch, the exact same inflection, like a recording being played back. It sounded digital. I grabbed my flashlight and shined it into the trees. "I'm armed," I shouted. "Identify yourself." Silence. Then, from behind me, literally right behind my truck, I heard it. "I'm armed. Identify yourself." My blood turned to ice. It wasn't my voice. It was my words, but spoken in that flat, hello voice from earlier. It was mocking me. I scrambled into my truck and locked the doors. My hands were shaking so bad I dropped my keys. I sat there in the dark, clutching my hunting knife, staring out the window, totally freaking out. For the next hour, nothing. I started to think maybe I was tripping, maybe it was an echo. Then, right against the driver's side window, a breath fogged up the glass. I hadn't seen anyone walk up. I turned slowly. Pressed against the glass was a face, but it looked glitched. The eyes were way too wide apart. The skin was smooth like plastic, and its mouth wasn't moving, but I heard the sound coming through the glass clearly. Hello? I slammed the truck into gear and noped out of there. I drove over saplings, rocks, everything. I didn't hit the brakes until I saw pavement. I don't know what was out there, fam, but it wasn't human, and it definitely wasn't looking for help. This story is exactly why I carry a paper map now. GPS is great until it glitches out and tries to kill you. Me and my buddy, Mark, decided to hike a section of the Appalachian Trail. We aren't rookies. We know how to read trail markers. We planned a simple 10-mile loop. In and out. Easy day, right? We hit the halfway point around noon. We stopped for lunch, took some selfies, just chilling. The vibe was good. We started hiking back around 1 p.m. The trail was clearly marked with those white blazes painted on the trees. We had been walking for about 2 hours when Mark stopped. "Bro," he said, "have we passed that tree before?" I looked. It was a massive oak with a weird lump on the side. It looked super familiar. "Nah," I said. "Trees look like trees, man. You're tripping. Let's keep moving." We walked for another hour. The sun started to dip. The shadows got long. And then we saw it again. The same oak tree. My stomach dropped. We had been walking in a straight line. We hadn't turned. "Okay," I said, trying not to lose it. "Maybe the trail loops back. Let's check the GPS." No signal. The map on my phone was spinning in circles, totally bugging out. We decided to mark the tree. Mark took out his pocket knife and carved a big X into the bark. We turned around and walked the opposite direction, just to be safe. We walked fast, 40 minutes flat out. We were sweating, panic starting to set in. The sun was almost gone. Then Mark stopped dead. He pointed ahead. There, in the middle of the path, was the oak tree, with the fresh X carved into it. We hadn't turned around. We had walked away from it in a straight line. "That's impossible," Mark whispered. He looked like he was going to be sick. Then the woods went quiet. No birds, no crickets. The air got heavy, like before a thunderstorm, and the path ahead of us, the well-worn dirt path we were standing on, just stopped. It didn't fade out. It ended in a wall of thick, impassable thorns, like the trail had been deleted from the server. We didn't even set up the tent that night. We huddled back to back against that oak tree with our flashlights on, sweeping the woods until dawn. We felt like we were being herded, like rats in a maze. When the sun came up, the thorn wall was gone. The trail was there again. We ran the whole way back to the car. When we got to the ranger station, we asked about the loop. The ranger looked at us like we were crazy. "There is no loop," he said. "That trail is a straight line to the summit and back. So you tell me, how did we pass the same tree 3 times?" There's an unwritten rule in camping. If the campground is empty, you don't pitch your tent right next to the only other person there. It's sketchy. You give people space. I was deep in the Boundary Waters in Minnesota. It's millions of acres of isolation. I had my own island, fire crackling, steak on the grate, just vibing. The water was dead calm, like a mirror. That's when I noticed it. Out on the lake, a dark shape was cutting through the reflection, a canoe. It was moving fast, but there was no sound, no splash of the paddle, just silence. He grounded the canoe on my beach, skirch. A guy got out, tall, wearing a heavy wool coat way too warm for the season. He didn't wave, he didn't say hello, he just dragged his canoe up the sand, walking right past mine. He stopped 10 feet from my fire ring, massive red flag, and dropped a heavy canvas bag. "Hey man," I said. "This site is occupied. There's another island a mile east." He didn't acknowledge me. He unzipped his tent and started pulling out tent poles. His movements were wrong, jerky, twitchy, like a stop-motion animation missing a few frames. He was moving way too fast for a human. In under a minute, the tent was up, a bright neon orange tent. It stood out like a hazard cone against the dark woods. I stood up, hand on my hatchet. "Hey, did you hear me? You can't camp here." He stopped. He went perfectly still. Then he turned his head slowly toward me. The firelight hit his face. He was wearing sunglasses, pitch-black aviators, in the middle of the night. He stared at me for 10 seconds. He didn't breathe. His chest didn't move. Then he spoke. His voice was wet and raspy, like he swallowed gravel. "I like this spot. I like the view." Before I could answer, he unzipped his tent, crawled inside, and zipped it shut. Zip. That was it. No fire, no sleeping bag. He just sat in that neon orange box. The vibe was dead. I wasn't going to sleep with a creep 10 feet away. I let my fire die down to coals to save my night vision, and I just sat there, watching that orange shape in the dark. Hours passed. The moon rose high, lighting up the lake like a spotlight. Then I heard it. Zzzt. The zipper opening. I watched through the mesh of my tent. The guy crawled out. He stood up, still wearing the heavy coat, still wearing the sunglasses. He turned and faced the lake, and then he just started walking. He walked past his canoe. He stepped onto the sand. He stepped into the water. He didn't swim. He didn't dive. He just walked, mechanically. I watched as the water rose to his knees, then his waist. He didn't slow down. The water was freezing, but he didn't even shiver. The water reached his chest, then his neck. I grabbed my flashlight and ran to the shoreline. "Hey, what are you doing?" He didn't stop. He walked until the water went over his mouth, then his nose, and finally the top of his head disappeared under the surface. I scanned the water with my beam. "Are you okay?" The lake was perfectly still, glassy, not a single ripple. I waited 1 minute, 2 minutes, nothing. I panicked. I jumped in my canoe and paddled like hell. It took me 2 hours to get to the ranger station in the dark. I banged on the door until a ranger answered, and we took his motorboat back at first light. We pulled up to my beach just as the sun came up. My tent was there, my fire pit was there, but the orange tent? Gone. The canoe? Gone. The ranger looked at me like I was losing it. "You said he set up right here?" "Yes," I pointed to the spot. "Right there. He had a bright orange tent." The ranger walked over to the sand. He crouched down and shone his flashlight. "Son," he said, "there are no footprints here." "What do you mean?" I ran over. "He walked right there. I watched him." I looked at the sand. It was smooth, perfectly untouched. The only footprints on the entire beach were mine. I know what I saw. I can still hear that raspy voice saying, "I like the view." But looking back, The scariest part wasn't the missing footprints. It was that when he walked into the lake, when he went under the surface, there were no bubbles. He wasn't holding his breath because he wasn't breathing.